how to outline a chapter, every chapter, on one page and dictate it in less than 2 hours. In other words, how to write a chapter in 2 hours of your time. This is secret number 3 out of 8 secrets on a series of how to author a best-selling book in less than 40 hours of your time. So get ready. This is going to blow you away. I hope you're ready to take meticulous notes. So I'm Doug Andrew, and I've been a financial strategist and a retirement planning specialist now for nearly 5 decades. And during that period of time, I have not only spoken 90,000 hours, but I've been very blessed and honored to have authored 12 books thus far. I'm working on my 13th. I'm going to keep writing books the rest of my life. After my first book, to be honest with you, I said, oh, that's it. I'm not going to write another one. And then within a few weeks, I was ready to start my next book. Sometimes I have found that authors, like the mistake I made, I had to sort of dump it all out of my brain into the first book. And my first book was like a War and Peace version, 550 pages. That should have been 4 books. I learned these lessons. My first book took 10 years to write because I was a perfectionist. And so in the next secret, I'm going to show you how to liberate yourself if that's your problem. This particular secret is about how to organize your thoughts to be able to write each chapter, okay? So make sure you watch all of these secrets. The very first one talks about the questions you need to answer. The second secret talks about the VOTA formula and how to deliver the 3 C's in the entire book. This secret talks about the formula for every single chapter. And it's magic. This actually, I got the idea from a book called Made to Stick, and I have adapted from that book my own formula for this. So get ready. I've been around the block. I've done that. I'm 70 years old. What's the purpose of this? I don't want to go to my grave with what I have learned throughout my lifetime being an author and not be able to help a lot of other people to be able to write books and get over whatever obstacles stand in the way, because you don't have to be a writer to be an author. An author is an authority on a subject. So if you're an authority on your subject, the world loves usefulness and they will want to read your book, but you want to make sure it's organized and you don't have to spend 10 years like my first one did. My second one took a year. My third one took 4 months. And ever since then, I've been able to author best-selling books in less than 40 hours of my time. Okay? So here is the third secret, and we're going to call this a success formula. And I memorized the acronym SUCCESS, and you can do the same thing, and you'll be able to develop your own formula here. The second secret, if you haven't watched that episode, I disclose the VOTA formula, which is what you use for the entire book, but you can apply the VOTA formula and revisit it in every chapter. Just as a review, the V stands for vision. You want to make sure that the reader, as they progress through your book, maintains this vision of the brighter future, the darkness of the night if they keep living life the way they're living it, and the brightness of the day or their future if they'll change their ways and follow what your advice is in the book, financially, physically, whatever. So the vision, you make sure they understand the obstacles that you're addressing, that you're going to help them overcome to achieve that vision. You want to keep in their mind clear the transformation that's going to take place if they follow your advice, and then the action steps. And so these chapters will contain action steps, and you can summarize them at the end of the book, okay? Now, that's the VOTA on the left. Now, I put this on one 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, and I only have this in front of me when I am dictating a chapter. Yeah, that's all I have. When I give a talk, I don't care if it's 10 minutes or if it's 2 hours in a presentation, I only use one sheet of paper in front of me now. And so this is the formula I use. Right now, I am using, in a way, this formula when I share YouTube videos. One way or another, it doesn't have to be in this order, but this is magic and it spells success. I attribute the book Made to Stick for this formula, even though I have adapted it to me being an author. Okay, we ready? We talk about the first S and then the U, the C, C, E, S, S. So I'm going to zoom in on the first three and then the last three of these and explain what I'm talking about. So when I'm ready to dictate a chapter, because my first two books I actually meticulously wrote a lot of them after I may have dictated them, but after that I just dictated them. And I'm going to share those secrets later on in this series. So the first S in the word success is simple, okay? You have to keep it simple and very short. You've heard the KISS method, keep it simple and sincere, okay? And so what is the simplest point I need to make? You cannot be shotgunning stuff in a chapter. The person that's reading your book needs to read a chapter. Now, some of my chapters, frankly, my first book were 60 pages long. I think the longest was 63. I usually like to have a chapter that is now between 8 pages to no more than 20 pages. But in each chapter, I want to make sure that there is no question what the simplest point is that I'm making. So you've got to simplify. What is the simplest point that you're making in this chapter? And you've got to be able to articulate it here in notes in one little box that takes just, 1/6 of the sheet of paper. So what's the simplest point I need to make in this chapter? Get super clear. Sometimes I will write and rewrite this until I'm ready to dictate the book, okay? Now, the U stands for unexpected. Now, unexpected would be if you want to shock your reader or your audience with some unexpected fact, some statistic, about that will take them off guard, that sort of wakes them up. You can have an unexpected fact that will surprise them. That's one use of the word you. I have since then used the word you to understand. In other words, in the second secret, I disclose I need to understand for sure why are these people, my audience who are buying my book, why are they feeling confused, isolated, and powerless about their particular set of circumstances, whether it's about money or diet or exercise or whatever I'm addressing. And how am I going to give them clarity, confidence, and capability? Those are the 3 C's in secret number 2. And then I need to muster up leadership, relationship, and creativity. So I need to understand my audience. And so you can use the you to make sure you get super clear on understanding, but also you can then use an unexpected fact that's going to shock them. And that came from the book Made to Stick. So that's the you. The first of the middle C's in there is concrete, okay? How does this work in practical terms? In other words, it can't be esoteric. You have to explain in the chapter concrete examples. It can't be abstract. How does this work in real life? They need to be able to mentally get their brain around it and go, oh, yeah, I can relate to this, and oh, I can do this. I can overcome this. This author understands me, and this author is getting very concrete with the examples that I'm relating to and very specific steps, like the action steps in the VOTA formula. So it's got to be concrete. That's the first of the middle C's. What's the next C? It's got to be credible, okay? Now, what experiences of this do people already have? So you've got to be credible as an author so that they aren't going, what? This person doesn't know what they're talking about. What experience do they have? They have no clue or whatever. So because of what you're sharing with them, experiences, you share experiences that you know of people that you have helped. You share your own experiences. Your own stories are always the best. And so in all of my books, I love to share my own stories because that builds credibility. So you have to share your experiences, other people's experiences. If you're, a marriage counselor, you ought to share experiences of some of your clientele. If you're a doctor, if you're a chiropractor, I helped a chiropractor write a best-selling book. He shared experiences. I had a cardiologist who wrote a book, and he actually wrote the odd chapters, and the even chapters were his patient's perspective, that he helped, that had blocked arteries and had suffered from a quadruple bypass and what have you. And so you have to get credible by using actual experiences. So concrete and credible. Now in the word success, we now come to an E, and that stands for emotional. Now, I've already sort of mentioned this. You cannot assume that everybody is going to think the way you do. If you are a left-brain thinker and you make your decisions logically using percentages and numbers and math, you're going to lose half of your audience. You need to be able to grab the emotion. You've got to use left brain and right brain approaches. You need to use what I call high concepts, that's the left brain, coupled with high touch. And so what crucial life or death situation is this about? In other words, if you keep doing what you're doing, this is what's going to happen. This is the darkness of the night if you don't, change your ways and start saving money or investing better or exercising or eating right. And so this is a crucial life or death situation that will tug at them emotionally, that will motivate them to want to take the advice you're giving them in your book, okay? And again, this is for books that are on advice. I'm using as an example. So that's the emotional tie-in, which also links over to the first of the last two S's, story. Now, you'll notice that some of the favorite speakers that you love to listen to are those speakers who tell stories, people who get on the radio and what have you. And so what is a great story, or two or three stories, that illustrates the point you're making in the first S? What's the simplest point you're making? And so you need to share a story. And again, your own stories are the best. If you don't have any of your own stories, then use stories of somebody close. But you weave in a story or two or maybe three in every chapter so that people can understand. And sometimes if you don't have a story, you can create a hypothetical one and have fictional characters, especially in a financial book. Sometimes I'll do that. But now, because I've had thousands of clients, I use actual stories, but I just change the names to keep the privacy of those clients. And so you use stories. People relate to stories. And that's why in one of my books, I have 62 stories. And it's actually all in just one side of the book, the right brain side of the book. If they want just all the facts and numbers, they read this side of the book. So this is two books in one. And so this is the concept of right brain, left brain, high concepts coupled with high touch. And you do high touch by using stories, metaphors, and what have you. I usually have 2 to 3 metaphors in every chapter. Okay. The last S is substance. Now, this is not what the authors in Made to Stick used. Substance is, they have to be able to get their brain around it. It can't be fluff. It can't be esoteric. It can't be out there. What makes this worth writing or communicating about? It's got to have some meat. They've got to, after they read this chapter, get all of these insights, but they need to feel empowered. Remember the formula in The Second Secret. You want to give them confidence or capability so they no longer feel powerless. So you've got to have substance so that they can grab hold of this and go, I can do this. I can do this. Yeah, I could begin to lose 0.75 pounds a week for 12 weeks and so forth. You have to give them bite-sized solutions and steps in substance that they can know that, oh, I can do this, instead of making them try to figure it out on their own, okay? So that is the last S for the success formula. So again, when I'm going through and I'm dictating a chapter, which I'll usually dictate a chapter in less than 2 hours, and I'm going to share this formula here, I have this sheet of paper in front of me, and this is all I have. And so I will sit down. In my very first book, I walked around an 18-hole golf course early in the morning, and I had one sheet of paper in front of me, and it was this. And it was basically, I would write down what the chapter heading was and the subheading, but then I would just say, okay, what's the simplest point I'm making? Get that clear in my head. I need to understand the audience or use an unexpected fact, okay? I need to be sincerely interested in helping the reader, okay? What is concrete? I need to use a metaphor and an example. I need to be credible. Why are people feeling confused, isolated, and powerless? How am I going to give them clarity, confidence, and capability? By mustering up leadership, relationship, and creativity. If I'm going too fast, you need to go back and watch the second secret. And then emotional. They will remember how they felt, okay, more than what you said. So, or what they heard. They're going to remember how they felt as they were reading your message. And then the stories about how this works in real life. And then with the substance, you've got to be able to restate true principles and give them the capability to empower them that they can do this. So what I do is I dictate it. And I used to dictate it on a little recorder. Now what I do, and I'll explain this in another secret, when I'm ready to do this, I have in the room with me an editor, okay, not a ghostwriter. She knows how I talk. And she knows my language because she's been my editor on all my books. And even when I used Time Warner as a publisher, they said, Doug, your manuscripts come in cleaner than any author we've ever published. Because she is in the room and she lets me just talk. I have a graphic artist in there, and they're thinking and writing down what kind of illustrations they can create. Sometimes I have an actual artist illustrator. And then sometimes I invite my marketing person in the room. And then I just start dictating as if I was talking to a person across the coffee table about this subject. And I just roll. And I just, if I had, 20 minutes, 30 minutes of somebody's undivided attention, what would I say and in what order would I say it? And I just start talking. If I get to a point where I pause, sometimes the editor says, Doug, give me a story that illustrates this. Give me an example. Can you think of a metaphor that illustrates what you just said? And that's the only time she interrupts me. And other than that, I just sit there and talk. And a recorder is recording it, and we use the software that transcribes it, okay? Or else you can send it to any of several now. But you can use different apps where like Otter AI, whereas you talk, it probably transcribes about 90% accuracy, and then you can edit that. So I'm just spitting it out. And in usually less than 2 hours, I dictate a chapter that is going to be anywhere from 8 pages up to 20, 25 pages. Now, what happens is then the editor goes through and sort of cleans all that up. See, I don't have to be a writer to be an author. I'm the author. The editor cleans it all up. Then she sends it to me. If I did that on Monday or Tuesday, she sends me the edited version on Friday. Over a weekend, I sort of correct a few things and so forth. And then the following Monday or Tuesday, because I usually dictate a chapter a week, I'd spend the first hour just going through the changes that I would recommend and clearing things up for the previous week's chapter. And then I have another sheet in front of me, and I dictate the next chapter. My 2 sons and I did this, and we wrote the best-selling book, Millionaire by 30, 3 hours on Monday mornings from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. With the editor who was in New York listening on the phone. You can now use Zoom or GoToMeeting. And we basically dictated a 12-chapter best-selling book in 36 hours by using that formula. We would dictate for about 2 hours, and then we would talk about the next week, the tweaks or changes and the stories and metaphors and illustrations we were going to insert in the chapter we dictated the week before. And in 12 weeks, we had a best-selling book, and it only took 36 hours of our time. Is this giving you a few ideas? Yep, that's the formula. So if you want to see this in action, I would recommend that you see some of the points that I'm making in these secrets in books. So you can get one of my books. This one is called Entitlement Abolition. It's a 200-page book. Go to entitlementabolitionbook.com and contribute a nominal amount towards the shipping and handling. I'll cover the rest of that cost, and I'll send you out a complimentary copy. I'll pay for the book. If you want to see how I do this with a financial book, then you can go to laserfund.com, laserfund.com. This has been flying off of our warehouse shelves. This is our most recent bestseller. I'm in my 8th printing. And this is the book that is right brain, left brain. This side is the left brain. This side is the right brain. This has been dynamite. You go to laserfund.com, contribute a nominal amount toward the shipping and handling, and I'll fire out a copy of that book to you. Or if you're an entrepreneur and you want to learn 10 keys that will transform your entrepreneurial practice to 10 times in less than 60 months, go to free10keysbook.com. Same thing, you contribute a small amount toward the processing, and I'll send out that digital book, because half of my books are digital. They're ebooks. And you'll see this one, it's in full color. And so this will give you an example to get a free book to sort of study how I have implemented these secrets in my own books.